Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. 7 o'clock. Having said that, I will pass the chair to Councillor Ferguson. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. The Mayor and Council wish to acknowledge the town of Fort Smith is located within Treaty 8 territory. Treaty 8 territory also encompasses the traditional homelands of Salt River First Nation, Smith Landing First Nation, and the Indigenous Métis people of Fort Smith. These nations have maintained stewardship of the sacred lands throughout the generations, and we honor your knowledge, teachings, traditions, and the land. We're mindful that colonization has not been kind, and we respectfully recognize our generational histories and commit to strive for unity in the spirit of truth and reconciliation. Okay. So there's no statement of financial interest, but we do have a delegation tonight, and that is from MACA, Bobby Burke and Bobby Burke. So I'll let you go ahead and just turn your mic on.
Sure. Thanks for having me here tonight. The other gentleman that was going to join me, Christopher Schott, couldn't make it tonight because he went back on a plane, but he would have been here Tuesday to explain probably some of the funding calculations a little clearer than I could because he's an accountant. That's his forte. But I will pick up what he was going to present. Feel free to stop me whenever you want if you've got a question, or we can take questions at the end.
Is it going to work for you over here?
Doesn't look like it.
Can you do it with just a tap or at the most?
So a quick outline of what I'll go over tonight. New funding policies were adopted in October 2023. However, they have not been fully implemented. The plan is to fully implement them for April 1st, 2025. We'll go a little bit over how MACA's funding is calculated and what those new policies mean for community governments, and then some feedback on the implementation plan. In order to kind of fully implement the plan, we wanted to go around to all the community governments, or as many as we can, and explain some of the changes that will be coming. So a little bit of a background here. 2001 community government funding policy was established, and then between 2001 and 2008, the community government funding policies that we have today were developed, and I'll be talking about three of those tonight: the operations and maintenance, the water and sewer funding, and the community public infrastructure funding. In 2014, there was a review. Sorry, we can go to the next one. Oh, one back. We're on it. Sorry. Back. Sorry. In 2014, there was a review of these policies. If some of you were on council then, you may have been part in the last 10 years, may have been part of some of the reviews that have gone on. In 2014, some of the items explored were how do we measure costs in each community. Everybody's got unique circumstances, and also what kind of level of service are they offering in their community. The other thing that was looked at is MACA distributing funding equitably, and then how do we use the current data and local cost drivers to find a landing point. In 2023, we completed some of the research that was and updated the policies that were started in 2014. Largely changed the distribution models away from a per capita and a complex statistical formula to determine what funding you got to a cost model based on community assets and services. And then we added some solid waste management to the water and sewer policy because we knew community governments had a lot of extra costs in there. And before that, it wasn't eligible. These are the funding policies that we do have. Community governments have access to over $125 million annually. It's distributed through 4 policies. Capital, there's $52 million in capital funding, 34 of which is the CPI funding, and $18 million is the Canada Community Building Fund. That's the formerly the gas tax fund. Then we have $54 million in O&M funding and almost $22 million in water and waste funding. O&M is the largest funding, as you'll see, and it's the least restrictive. It's targeted for O&M costs, but can be used for capital projects. The next few slides are on how we calculate a community's cost to deliver services. I'm not going to get too in depth here, but basically capital funding is determined by your standard assets and divided by the useful life, and that becomes your annual cost. We use buildings, water and sewer, and solid waste infrastructure, equipment, roads, and cemeteries to come up with those numbers. O&M funding, that's the cost to kind of operate and maintain your assets, and it's linked to the asset listing. And it's also throws in some funding for protective services and recreation and administration costs, because we know it costs money to operate your offices and whatnot. And then it minuses the standard revenue that we expect a community government of your size to be able to generate.
Is this specific to Fort Smith?
That number, no, that's just, yeah. Water and waste looks at your water treatment and delivery, your sewage collection, your solid waste collection and treatment, some admin, and then subtract some standard revenue again that we
You
expect.
just mean user fees for that aspect?
For the revenue, yeah. This, I guess, is the real reason why we're going around to community governments and how this implementation and next steps and some future considerations that we wanted to get in front of councils. Some of the new terms and conditions for your water and waste funding. Surpluses greater than $500,000 need to be communicated to residents and MACA, and also include what your plan is for that funding. If it's to buy a new water truck or repairs to underground infrastructure or new underground infrastructure, that's fine. If you don't have a plan and you've got $1 million or $2 million in the bank, then that's a sign of, or could be a sign of inadequacies in the program. Maybe you're charging too much for water. But I don't have the specifics for Fort Smith here tonight. So I don't know if that's a problem here. Or annual funding, yeah. Just the surplus. Yeah. Water and waste rates. This one's largely about houses within the community. They should all be charged a residential rate. We know that housing NWT in many communities gets charged the government rate for their houses, and that will need to be corrected to a residential rate. We realize that might have an impact on everybody's water rates, and so we can assist with some water rate analysis to see where it should land. Churches.
Institutions, not-
The government buildings, like their office buildings, can stay at a government rate. It's largely the houses that would be charged. Your hospital would still be your government rate. Your institution would still be the government rate type thing. But so it's largely just focusing on your houses here. One back. And then I guess just more transparency and accountability. If a community government isn't following the policy, we've just added in some things that we can do, like holding back payments if needed. This one is towards your community public infrastructure. We the eligible spending categories just to kind of align with CCBF. So some of the expenses that are allowed are roads, water, recreation facilities, large equipment. However, housing is not eligible under CPI. Subdivisions are eligible and infrastructure to support the development of housing, but the actual house is not eligible. CPI projects also must be over $10,000. Promotes priority setting and then eases administrative reporting. We don't want to see one desk and one chair come in as a capital expense. That's more of an operation and maintenance cost. So there is some wording a lot about that. And then to have climate change assessments and feasibility studies done prior to any new infrastructure built in the community. And then a best practice guide such as Northern infrastructure standards and good building practice for northern facilities are encouraged so that our buildings don't crumble after 10, 15 years type thing.
Is there a plan to actually support the costs of these additional assessments that are required?
Costs, we do have climate change specialists within our department that can assist with some of the work, but ultimately it may add some extra costs to the capital projects.
Mike, your mic, oh, me too, sorry.
Yeah, just a question with the Northern Infrastructure Standards. Is what department's responsible for establishing and maintaining those standards?
The guides are provided, and then it's just up to the community government whether to implement some of those practices when they build. Okay. Some of the other terms of community governments have 2 years to resolve that resulted in payment holdbacks. The department is holding back at least $25 million from communities because of failure to have audits or other reporting requirements met. And we want to see that money at the community government and used to support capital or support their community. After 2 years, if these holdbacks aren't released and reporting hasn't been fixed, MACA will just return that funding to the CPI budget to distribute elsewhere. It may also get added to the water and waste sewer services budget. That hasn't been finalized yet, but there is potential for community governments to lose their money if they don't have their reporting up to date. Along with, I guess, reporting up to date, if audits aren't submitted on time, MACA will contract an auditor or a bookkeeper to get that in order. If their audit is more than 1 year late. In order to pay for that, we will just claw back money from the community. Some communities get paid monthly, some communities get paid over a 9-month period, but we'll just claw some of that back when handing it out. And then ultimately funding could be withheld if you don't have your audit in as well. And community governments depend on that O&M and water and waste funding. So hopefully some initiatives to get that done. And what we chose the 1 year because after 1 year, it's really hard for a community government to catch up on their reporting.
Yeah, like for Fort Smith, if we're looking at a brand new sewer system, I mean, let's go big here. The real deal where it takes all your stuff and redoes everything for it. Okay, I'm not sure what that price is. Probably what, $12 million? Okay, so if communities are not using their money, or they're in this place where of getting their audits done and that, can the community that is in good shape apply for those dollars?
Good question. Because we haven't fully implemented this yet, we don't have the process for how that extra money, would you say, gets distributed back into the pot. But I can jot that down and hopefully get an answer back soon.
Yeah, because that's an answer that we're going to need like within the next probably 2 years or even shorter than that, because our lagoon here is at the edge of the hill. The sliding's good in it so far, but nevertheless, should that ever give way, we got a serious problem. Now, if we're going to develop a new sewer lagoon, then we might as well just do the brand new one that's out there. Whether it's 10 million or 12 million, there's times where you just have to bite the bullet. If you're going to make the turn in the road, you got to bite the bullet and make the turn. Like that's what I'm going to be going after, is the brand new system. So anyway, thanks.
Okay. This is a bit of the overview of the new funding allocations, and I think really why we wanted to come here tonight. The current funding for 24-25 is on the left, kind of the left graph there. The designated authorities are provided 98% of their calculated total cost to operate their community. And that's compared to communities greater than 1,000 people. And they're only getting 64% of those calculated costs. So we can see that there's a bit of an imbalance here. And these new policies and implementing these new policies are an attempt to try and correct that so that we're all on an even field.
I notice you don't have the percentage, so we can see what the change in the percentage is. We got that it's up by 9.6 million, but where does that actually put the percentages at?
Oh, I've got that later.
Okay.
So after the new funding policies are fully implemented, the plan was for the designated authorities, the 9 of them, between the 9 of them, they would go down $4.7 million. Communities less than 500 people would go down $4.3 million. The communities that are in the 500 to 1,000 range would decrease $474,000, and the communities greater than 1,000 would increase $9.6 million. Now, I say that that was the initial plan was to go with that route, and that was an all equal distribution. I think, Tracy, the equal number was about 77%. Each community government would be at the 77% level, whereas right now the larger communities are at 64, and the smaller ones are close to 100. The implementation would start April 1st. It would be a 3-year transition. So whether you were getting an increase, it wouldn't be that full increase on year 1. At the end of year 3, you would have your full increase. Right now, 22 of the 32 communities receive a higher share than kind of the all equal, and they will see funding amounts decrease. I want to go to the next one. So the impacts to small communities, 16 of our smallest communities would decrease in funding. However, there's other resources to mitigate the effects. 13 of these communities have an accumulated surplus and approximately $102 million in unspent capital funding. The majority of that has already been paid to the community government, and it's sitting in their bank account, but there is some, about 25 million still to be distributed. So we can't have that. the North needs, our communities need capital developed, and we're seeing that communities are struggling or communities don't need that money to develop what they assets in their community. Yeah, and for over 10 years, these communities have not seen any decreases in funding and have continued to receive their higher share. So it's coming. we'll get to the other option here. So these are two other options that we came up with. Just because the all equal option could have see some communities lose significant amounts of money, and that might be a hard thing to put on them. Just got to find my notes here because I think this is where we've got to switch to that other document. So everybody have it but me.
Oh,
Yeah,
this one should
let's
be-
go to the blue document. If Chris was here, I'd have him explain some of these costs on the first and second page. These are just what some of your average costs, the total calculated costs to deliver some services and assets in your community. But if you want to turn to the bottom of the second page, I don't have it on the PowerPoint slide, so I can't show it up
Option A,
there.
you said?
Yeah, it says summary and implementation. So the picture on the top left, I guess, of that under summary and implementation just shows the 24-25 funding amounts that you received this year. Between the three pots of money, Fort Smith got $5.749 million. Under the all equal option, that would increase to $7.4 million at the end of the implementation plan of 3 years. There is another option, or two other options, I guess, that we came up with. Option A, it would still provide 100% of O&M and capital costs to small communities. Those are those communities under 500 people. And then it would smaller percentages to the rest of the community. So it would be 100% of those costs for some communities, and instead of 77% across the board, those costs would be lowered in Fort Smith. So under option A, Fort Smith would receive $6.86 million, and that would be approximately 69% of the calculated costs for the community. Under option B, this looks at transferring some of the CPI dollars into water and waste services. And Fort Smith would look at receiving $6.7 million. So obviously it's not 100% of what a community government would want. There are costs to distribute, like between three levels of government and residents. We all have a responsibility here. But implementing these funding policies, we hope to correct, I guess, some of the inequities across the board. So really what we're looking for tonight, and not necessarily tonight, is some feedback from council and the community government on which option they would prefer. The all equal option A or option B.
Councillor Couvette?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Unfortunately, the option C was not listed, which would be where the GNWT felt it in the community and the territorial's best interest to increase funding, to start trying to close the funding shortfall gap that the government of the NWT and the communities have fully acknowledged, we're overall still facing upwards $40 to $50 million funding shortfall. It's nice that they're acknowledging it, but by trying to make things better for our community, kudos to that. But apparently it's at the expense of somebody else. And I feel really, really sad that the government they've, for at least the last 6 years that I've been on council, have said, we're serious about addressing the funding shortfall gap. We're going to commit $5 million to it. The last government committed to $5 million over their 4-year term, and that sort of fell kind of short. I believe latest calculations show that the funding shortfall has actually increased overall, and it's really difficult for communities to be able to continue to provide the level of services that our constituents would like to have. And I would have to say we have to, in this case, look at the option that's going to bring the most money to our community. And unfortunately, it's going to impact some of the other communities out there, and that's really sad to say. But I think if the government really wants to come to the table and say, like, we're serious about working with communities to ensure they're adequately funded or better funded, they need to bring additional funding to the table to address the overall shortfall. I know that's not what you wanted to hear, but it's the truth. We are the first line of service providers to most residents in our community, and we're not being provided the funding that we really should be. When you look, we're only getting 64% previously, maybe up to 68% now. It's a step in the right direction for us, but for communities like Kisa and Fort Yard and places like that are going to be the ones that are going to have to pay for us being, enough rambling.
Deputy Mayor?
I tend to agree with Councillor Couvret. It's sad that we're pitting neighbor against neighbor in the Northwest Territories. We're one big family. There's only 45,000 people here. We need to come up with a better solution so that one community can help another community.
Thanks for those comments. Ultimately, right now, all we have to work with is the $158 million. And so we had to come up with a way to divide that, I don't want to say equally, but equitably. Over the last few years, there has not been cuts to community government funding, especially in this last budget cycle where there was the GNWT did have to cut funding from the budget, but community government funding was protected during that. So I hear you on one community losing and one community winning type thing. But these are the calculations that we've come up with. And those smaller communities that are going to see a decrease in funding do have large surpluses for probably various reasons, but
Deputy Mayor?
So I have two questions. Do you know anybody off the top of their head how much we actually do get for cemeteries out of all this? Because I know I saw that you had mentioned that. And then the other question has escaped me. I'm sorry. It was. Sorry, it came back to me. Can we lobby the federal government for more resources? I mean, is that ultimately where we can get dig into deeper pockets.
Yeah, I think the GNWT is constantly looking for additional funding from the federal government, and I know community governments are often asking the same questions. So yeah.
Any other comments? Oh, Mayor Daniels?
Yeah, I guess for Fort Smith, the critical one that we have to deal with coming in the very near future is our lagoon. We really need to deal with that one. And, I'm saying like if the people are not using their dollars and if we could use it for this year, then technically we should be good for another maybe 15, 20 years. There might be other stuff coming on the table, but if we're starting to get into a Raggedy Ann situation, where we're just doing patching stuff, it's going to add up to way more money at the end of the day. I would like to work within that 2.5 year window span to solve this question. And then it'll be nice to get out of Mackenzie Water Board's C2, because they're watching us, right? And we're caught in the middle here. Like we got to seriously deal with this problem here in Smith. That's coming up, and that's the biggest one I think it's coming. Our underground waters, we could probably use money there, but so far we're getting along good with it. But the big one is, how do we put this sewer thing together? And if we're going to do it good, let's just get the Cadillac thing and buy the best of the best and get it over with. Then it's done. Then we've made that turn in Fort Smith's history. So thanks.
Have anything SAO that you wanted to ask? Okay. Any other questions for our delegate? Do you have more to say?
Not a whole lot more, I guess. I probably know the answer of which funding option you want, but if you maybe have the SAO email me your I guess option that you would like to see implemented. If you can do that by the end of September, that would be great. We will look to have all 3 of these funding policies implemented for April 1st, 2025. And then, as usual, staff are available with some of the financial and capital asset management questions that may come up.
Well, Mayor Daniels?
Yeah, just one more. I'm going back to that school tax zoning there that we're collecting on the behalf of the GNWT. It would be good to get some incentive there to carry that on. Perhaps initiative. What do you call that? I forget now. I'm brain dead here. Like a service charge for doing it for you, right? Admin fee. Because whether that'd be small or not, it could probably pay one more bill at the town hall here that we owe. So everything helps. The GNWT has shortchanged many communities over the years, and it has tried to, bring up the stuff, but nevertheless, we're still shortchanged. So we need to work together on finding common ground so the both of us could move forward. So that is one of my suggestions on a good working relationship with the town and the government. So thanks.
All right. Well, thank you, Macca, Bobby Burke, for coming in and giving us that awesome information that we will take back and get back to you before the end of September. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so moving on, I need someone to recommend and move the agenda.
I move the agenda be adopted as presented.
I'll second that.
Is there any changes or amendments or additions? The skate park community services. Yeah. Did you want to add it on?
Yeah.
What do you want to add it on?
Hey.
What do you want to add on?
Just that like cameras, there should be cameras for it.
So under other business, you want
Yeah,
to talk
sure.
about a skate park?
Yeah. Let's fix that. 40, so, yeah.
Does the mover and the seconder approve those amended?
I'm okay with the amendment.
Okay, so all in favor? Okay, then the agenda is adopted as presented. So the minutes from the Community Services Standing Committee minutes was from August 13th. Are in your package. Is there any business from those? None? Oh, okay, I was gonna, Counselor Cravette.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to bring this up as something administration will be hopefully working on for the next council coming in shortly. Under the review, item 3A was the delegation from our minutes of August 13th, I believe. We were talking about the need to visit and provide recommendations on how within the bylaws and possibly, basically within our bylaws, how we would address the desire for people to have natural environment landscapes within their yard. And I just want to bring that forward as something I think that really needs to be looked at fairly quickly, because it does not only impact our unsightly premises bylaws and things like that, but it also has an impact on how we're able to manage fire smarting within our community as well. And I think that's more of an important issue in this day and age where people are letting yards go wild just for the sake of not having to mow, versus somebody who has a natural environment yard that they're actually maintaining through proper watering and actual landscape management. There's a big difference between those two, and I think our bylaw really needs to address that, and how it will also impact our ability to deal with necessities of people fire smarting their yards. So I just wanted to bring that up as something that needs to stay on the books for administration and the future bylaw review committees to work on. And then just a second item was under the same, same minutes and everything, was item 4B of the review. It had been suggested that administration would circulate a copy of the report from the Economic Development Advisory Board about their recommendations on business licensing. And I think that needs to be brought forward to the bylaw review committee as well. And that's all.
Thank you. Any other business from those minutes? Okay. Seeing none then, we also, as always, you have our visions and values, our community service master plan, and our economic development plan. So we had no director's report from the community. So in your package, you have your community services director report from, is there anything that comes from that report from council? Councillor Cravette?
Yeah, I see in the report there was some references to the recently held, actually it was just last weekend, the Whooping Crane Festival. And I think we should give special kudos to the 4 organizers that pulled that festival together. It was done in reasonably short order. So I think congratulations on them. We had a great delegation, or a good representation of people from across North America. We did have at least one person from Arnanzas come up to participate and present at the festival. And I think it's a good demonstration of what a well thought out and promoted festival can do for our community. There was probably 10, 12, 15 people that came to our community and in a small way contributed to our economy. So kudos to the organizers, and let's hope that this becomes another one of our annual festivals.
Thank you, Councillor Cravette. Is there any other business? Okay, Deputy Mayor?
I just have a couple questions. Do we charge for the parent tots in the mornings at the rec center? And did they relocate the Pete's Gym sign and the update for the signs that are supposed to incorporate for all the different groups in the rec center?
SAO?
I'll have to check on both of those.
I'll get back to you. Any other comments from the director's report? Okay. Okay. So moving on the agenda then, there was no new bylaw or policy in here. We have a briefing note about to award the WMC. Councilor Cravette?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick point of order. We skipped over advisory boards.
Sorry about that. We definitely did. We do have an advisory board. So Community Services Advisory Board, there's an expression of, I'm looking at it even, I'm staring at it and I'm like, what? This doesn't look like that. An expression of interests. So, yeah. So if I could have a recommendation.
I move to accept the application for the Community Services Advisory Board for Ally McDonald.
I'll second that.
Councillor Cravette?
Yeah. I believe this is a reappointment to the advisory board, just so that we recognize her continued contribution to our community.
There should also be, I believe it's a 2-year term or 3-year term, but we need to have the year length of term as well put into this, please.
Do you want to change your recommendation to include an end date?
Yes, please. I believe it's a 2-year, but if we could have it clarified by admin and put into.
So December 31st, 2026?
Yes, I believe that will be the date of the termination, yes.
All right, all in favor? Okay, motion's carried. Now we'll move on to a briefing note.
Okay. I move that council by motion awards WMC the Town of Fort Smith Organizational Review Project for an amount of $114,856.25, GST included.
I'll second that.
Okay, think discussion. Deputy Mayor?
So WMC is Western Management Consultants. Is that correct, SAO? Yes. And did we get to see the scope of the project with the timeline and if there's going to be engagement from the current council as well?
The RFP was sent out and was posted publicly on our website. The review committee did go over the RFP as well as the projects. Current council, I'm trying to remember if the timeline will probably be a month till it actually starts. We will have meetings with advisory boards, stakeholders, and interested parties. So absolutely, current council, I would think I would make that a priority, to be honest, because of the history of this council. Yeah, no, I think I would definitely make it a priority that we capture outgoing council's input on this.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Okay, passed unanimously. There's another briefing note in our package on the Housing Accelerator Fund. All right, do you want someone to make a recommendation and then we can speak on it?
I move that mayor and council approve the 2024 Housing Accelerator Funding application to CMHC to support meeting long and short-term housing goals for the town of Fort Smith.
I'll second that.
Thank you. SAO, did you want to comment on this?
This was applied for last year, and unfortunately, we weren't one of the successful applicants. However, what they did a second call out only to those who had applied and were unsuccessful previously. So it was a smaller competition, I guess is how we put it. So we worked really, really hard on this. It was a full team effort, as well as we worked with, and we met several times with CMHC, that we were capturing the best practices and the highest scoring initiatives. We reviewed last year's application, saw where we did well and where we could do better, and those are the areas that we addressed. So I feel like we've submitted a very, very strong proposal. It's the funding formula that's contained within the application puts us at a little over 2.7 million is what we're applying for. Whether they have a high success rate of applicants and they have to spread it out a little thinner, that's to be seen. But right now we've applied for just a little bit over 2.7 million for this. Of that, about 40% of that is earmarked to finalize the West Grove, Spruce Grove, West Grove subdivision, and the rest of it's focused on implementing good bylaws, incentives and disincentives towards development, and to disincentivize vacant lots, derelict buildings. So there's a lot of different aspects, land administration bylaws. There's a lot of different aspects of this proposal, but overall it's to streamline and to encourage development and to address the housing situation.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you for your work on that. I know it was not easy with power outages and that type of thing. Just a question in regards to what was put in for the West Grove subdivision expansion. Was that to push through the road and where the soccer pitch used to be, is that going to be turned into lots? Do you recall off the top of your head?
I don't recall the full details. Basically, the goal was to finalize the subdivision, to move it forward and to complete the subdivision work that needed to be done. So there wasn't a lot of breakdown required within the proposal. It was more of what is our high-end goals, or what are our long-term goals and final objectives.
Mayor Daniels?
Okay, was this anything to do with zoning on Calder and Wilderness, where you have that bush there? And I had looked before, and there's probably close to 20 lots in there, but the problem is that to get them zoned, is that money going to this, some of that going to this program?
Part of this overall proposal was to look at our zoning bylaw. We are about halfway through the process right now. We did include that in there. It was an already started initiative. We are clear with that. But it was to take a look at our zoning bylaw in order to increase, again, the development potential within the town and to ease up, to make it an easier process. We did not identify specific areas within the proposal. We left it very general so that we can develop the need analysis if we're actually successful.
Yeah, no, I was looking at really getting that money for that and really taking care of our housing shortage under that. But if it's going to bylaws and that, like, I don't know. I think we have enough there on bylaws probably to fix it up and that. I don't really want to waste time with bylaws. I want to deal with housing shortage. I'm sorry. Thanks anyway.
Any other concerns, discussion? Okay, so all in favor? Okay, passed unanimously. Next, that was in our package, is the St. John Anglican Church donation request.
I move that mayor and council to donate the branded merchandise package to the St. John's Anglican Church for their auction.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Passed unanimously. Under other business then, Mayor Daniels, you had something you wanted to bring up, the skate park?
Yeah, I just noticed on Facebook tonight, I guess there was some vandalism done at the park there, and I've read the comments on there, and I think we should put some lighted up with lighting around there, probably all around the building, and then get some cameras in there, because this has been ongoing, and it has to be fixed. And that's one of the things, like, I'll be honest with, I'm kind of reluctant to put stuff in because it always gets damaged. Like I don't know. But anyway, I think we should take a serious look on lighting that up with those LED lights. Wouldn't cost that much for the power of it, and get cameras in there. And if we have to lock it down at a certain time, then I'm good with that also. Say 10 o'clock when it closes down. If that's what's going to keep the vandalism out of there, then I guess that's probably where we have to go. So, yep, I just want to say that. Thanks. But I'd like to just nip it at the bud before it gets too bigger here. Thanks.
Councillor Cruvette?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I think we need to do something to mitigate vandalism in our community, and I think well-placed security cameras would be a benefit. I would almost suggest live streaming them so that people can, the general public can be part of our guardians. People sometimes have nothing better to do. They go on to see what's happening on the live stream camera. I have to disagree with the additional lighting. Recently hosted the Dark Sky Festival, and one of our guest presenter and things is a national renowned advocate for light abatement. And there's studies out there, probably at least a dozen or so studies, that demonstrate that lighting up an area up does not actually reduce crime. I sort of jokingly say that not many vandals have night vision goggles. And if the place is dark and somebody's running around with a flashlight, they're much easier to spot. And you're not lighting things up for them to go and be able to scope out what if they're looking at borrowing stuff on a long-term basis. It's not readily exposed to them to be able to scope the area out quite easily. So before we go throwing up a whole bunch of lights that really may not be effective other than increasing our electricity bills. So I fully agree that we need to address the vandalism, and I think security cameras may be a deterrent. And I would again encourage we consider live streaming so that the vandals will be identified as they're doing the work.
Thank you. Did you have a comment for that?
When we first actually started this project, I did reach out to the security company that's providing the cameras and screen system that we have within the rec and asked for a quote, and I have followed up twice. I have not yet received it, but this is a good reminder of me to follow up 3 times.
Any other comment on that? Mayor Daniels?
Yeah, just a rebuttal. If you don't have lighting, how is your camera going to pick up anything in the dark?
Counselor Pissinger?
Yes, just to see, maybe if we could assess the lighting and see how much lighting we have there, because we do want it open, right? That was the whole intent. So is it safe for them with the lighting we have now, or do we need more? If it's at 10 o'clock at night, is there enough lighting?
I'm assuming that this was reported to the RCMP, so we're just encouraging anybody who has any information to please come forward and present that, please.
Thank you. Any other from the floor? Okay, well then, excusing of counselors, we'd heard from Len and Counselor Tucky and Counselor Campbell. Had we heard from Counselor Bulio? Okay. Excusing of counselors.
Thank you, ma'am. I move that Councillor Campbell and Councillor Tucky be excused from the Community Services Standing Committee meeting of September 10th, 2024. 12th.
I'll second that.
Okay, discussion. All in favor? Okay, motion carried. The date of, we don't have another one of these until a while. This, because that was going to be brought up at the next meeting? Okay. I think that we weren't going to have committee meetings, just a council meeting, one council meeting next month. It's on the agenda, yeah. So it'll come up in the next meeting. So we won't have another community services standing committee meeting till November 5th, 6th, no.
And that will be the installation.
No, the 12th. Yeah, maybe Estee will help.
Can I suggest that it'll be next council's decision how they want to do committee meetings? Do you know how I feel about this is the way we've always done it?
All right, thanks, guys. So recommendation to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn the meeting at 8:00 p.m.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? All right, we are adjourned.